I want you guys to know that everything I'm about to tell you is absolutely true. Last night, I paid $10 to see this really lame action movie. It was about a dentist/adventurer who wore a felt hat and a leather jacket, and for some reason, a pair of boxers over his jeans. So they called him Undy Jones. Undy and his young sidekick Mutthead were in Egypt to find the mummy, flatulent pharaoh, King Tut. They were being chased by an army of ninjas who followed them across the desert on camels wearing roller skates. Eventually, Undy and Mutthead located King Tut's pyramid using a map they found in the book Mummies for Dummies. They entered the passageway filled with blood-sucking snails. Why does it always have to be snails? And acrobatic bats. A stone door opened, revealing Tut's treasure, including the pharaoh mummy's Shark of the Covenant, Cleopatra's crystal cell phone, you know, the kind with hieroglyphic text messaging. Suddenly, a ninja wielding a pair of nunchucks entered the tomb. Just then, King Tut's mummy let rip a 3,000-year-old fart so powerful that even the Sphinx could smell the stink. The fart made the pyramid collapse, but our heroes escaped just in the nick of time. That's my story, and it's all true. My childhood was pretty normal. Like most kids, my parents took me to a safari in Africa when I was just 5 months old. Early on in the trip, a ferocious lion snatched me out of our vehicle. Before he could snack on me, a gorilla named Kerchoo swooped down and rescued me. He raised me as his son for the next 14 years, plus taught me how to swing on vines while giving the old jungle yell, something like that, and showed me how to tie a boa constrictor into a knot. I was known as Teen Zen, Prince of the Jungle. One day I was wrestling a hyena who had laughed at me when my parents finally found me. They took me to their home in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and enrolled me in high school. And that, my friends, is where the trouble began. At the big basketball game, I gave a cheer so loud that it knocked half a dozen kids out of the bleachers. Then to show Jane, the head cheerleader, that I liked her, I searched for bugs in her hair. Finally, I battled a threatening-looking panda wearing tennis shoes. And just as the coach was about to kick me out, a tiger that escaped from the zoo entered the gym. My instincts kicked in. I swung on some climbing ropes, jumped down on the tiger, giving him a big slam dunk, thus saving Jane and winning the game by 2 points. That's my story, and it's all 100% true. I always wanted to be a pirate when I grew up, so that's why I enrolled in Longhand Silver's pirate school. Principal Pegleg said I had to buy a backpack because some guy named Davy Jones had dibs on all the lockers. I needed a compass to find my way to gym class, where we juggled real cannonballs. When I pretended my jockstrap was an eye patch, everyone laughed. Unfortunately, Coach Scallywag didn't think it was so yo-ho-ho, so he made me walk the plank. Up next was art. I painted a treasure map of an island shaped like somebody's butt, and I entitled it Pirate's Booty. My teacher gave me a D because I used a C to mark the spot instead of an X. Letters have never been my strong suit. The school cafeteria was below the poop deck, which is never a good sign. The daily special was skull soup, but I opted for the crossbones burger. After lunch, I had swashbuckling 101, but unfortunately, I cut the rope I was swinging on with my sword. My final class was beard trimming for beginners, but Miss Swan told me to come back when I grew one. Just then, a noisy parrot sitting behind me shouted, "Get lost!" The teacher thought I was mouthing off, and I had to swab the deck after school. That's my story, and it's all true. Here we go. Lots of people have crazy next-door neighbors, but my neighbor, Doc Quackensack, is a mad scientist. I was visiting Doc in his lab the other day, and I stepped into his bathroom. Unfortunately for me, Doc had turned his bathroom toilet into a time machine. Just one flush and a whoosh, and I was hurled back in time. A moment later, I was face to face with a saber-toothed tiger. Luckily, I was saved by a blue-haired caveman who whacked the big cat on the butt with his club. He lifted me onto his purple woolly mammoth and took me on a journey past a slimy swamp and an active volcano to his cave. The place smelled like prehistoric farts. So I looked open a window, but hey, it's a cave, am I right? That night, the caveman presented me with a necklace made of rat's teeth and petrified bat dung. Ugh. When I left the cave the next morning, I found myself nose to nose with a striped triceratops and a green-spotted stegosaurus. I grabbed onto a nearby orange pterodactyl who took me across the countryside and set me down on a plane near my time-traveling toilet. A hungry two-headed tyrannosaurus was headed my way, so I flopped down on the seat and whoosh, I was back to the present with a flush. That's my story, and it's all true. Moving to a new town is tough, especially when the town is known as Sporks, Washington, the only city whose population declines daily. On my first day at Full Moon High, I met this girl named Edwina in math class who was literally bat crazy. Sabrina in my English class had a black cat, a cauldron handbag, and called her dictionary my spell book. And in bus line, Jacoba kept checking her almanac for full moons. Suddenly, a runaway burgermobile came careening towards us. Edwina leapt out of nowhere and stopped it cold. The sight of the big hamburger made her ill, but as she left, she burped longingly in my direction. As I walked to Edwina's house that night to thank her, I felt an ache inside. Was it because of her or Mom's tuna casserole? When I spotted Edwina in her garden sucking the juice out of a tomato, it hit me. She's a vegetarian vampire. Without warning, I was attacked by her ex-boyfriend, Zacula. But then, Sabrina appeared, whacked him with her broom, while a wolf with Jacoby's haircut nipped at him until he fled. The next day in the cafeteria, I was faced with a choice more daunting than sloppy joes or mystery meat. Which bewitching girl should I ask to the prom? That's when I decided that they're all too weird. So I asked Francine instead. The prom was held in creepy Collins Cemetery, but I had fun dancing with Francine until I noticed the bolts in her neck. That's my story, guys, and it's all true. Poor Harry Porker knew that he was unlike his other relatives, so he squealed in delight when a giant crimson pig named Hogred appeared at his door and announced that he'd been accepted to pig wizardry school. Harry stepped into Hogred's boat, and they flew off to Warthog's School of Pigcraft. Harry was accepted into Sniffendor, the school's best pig pen. He and his penmate, Ron Squealsley, spent the nights making potions out of mud. During the day, he and her swiney practiced spells that turn garbage into food, which isn't too hard if you're a pig. One day, Harry competed in a pig witch match and successfully captured the golden snout. But the school's bully, Bacon Malfry, accused Harry of cheating and challenged him to a spell-off at the Forbidden Farm. Sensing a trap, Harry rolled in the mud of invisibility beforehand. But Bacon smelled Harry as he approached and washed the magic mud away with a bucket of slop. Beside Bacon stood the evil Lord Voldemort. He and Harry drew their wands at the same time, but Voldemort's spell was more powerful. Luckily, the headmaster, Professor Bumblebore, had followed Harry, and they combined their powers to turn Voldemort into a smoked ham. And that's my story, and it's all true. One day, I took my horse Wackadoodle out of the garage for a spin. One canter, gallop, and a wrong turn later, I found myself in the town of Deadhead, where the townfolk were all in a panic. The blacksmith mistook me for the Sheriff Wyatt Burke, probably because of my cowboy outfit and the gold badge. Did I fail to mention those before? He begged me to do something about the monkeys that escaped from Buffalo Biff's traveling circus. That's when I noticed all the folks slipping on banana peels. I entered the juice bar and found chandelier-swinging chimps loopy on banana smoothies. Soon the streets were overrun with monkeys riding dogs and wrangling cats. I knew this was the dirty work of Mad Mug McGee. I found Mad Mug and his lame brothers, Frank and Messy, holed up in the old Deadwood Hotel. I said, "There isn't room in this town for men and monkeys." But my pleas fell on dead ears. We met the next day at high noon and counted to 13th, and then BAM! We were mano a mano in a double Dutch showdown. Just then, Mad Mug dropped a banana peel at my feet. As I went down, I yanked the jump rope, sending the lame brothers into a head-on collision. I quickly hog-tied Mad Mug and his men, saved the day, and got the girl, even though I had no idea who she was. That's my story, guys, and it's all true. All right. Once upon a time, there was a magical kingdom called Dumalot. It was guarded by the Knights of the Wrong Table, and they were so lame they couldn't even remember who sat where. Even dumber was King Farther, who spent the day sitting on his not-so-royal throne. The court wizard, Moron the magician, was always turning princes into frogs, leaving no suitable suitors for the poor Princess Gwyneth. One day, a dragon convinced the Dumalot guard that he was a pizza delivery guy. After entering the castle, he kidnapped the princess, and then the king issued a proclamation. Whomever pulls the lance from the log and rescues the princess will be crowned prince. Then I, Jeffster, the court jester, pulled it out with one hand. The knights all laughed because I didn't even have a horse. But what I did have was a two-horned unicorn named Corndog. I rode into the Valley of the Winged Serpents and arrived at the dragon's lair. When he saw me, he laughed. That lance will make a perfect toothpick after I eat you. Unfazed by a talking dragon, I used my lance to pole vault onto his neck. He flew in a corkscrew trying to shake me off, but I was well versed in dragon tickling and caused him to crash. I rescued the princess, got back the pizza money, and became the prince. That's my story, and it's all true. Okay. In high school, I was known as Jeff, the class clown, but on weekends, I was Secret Agent 0015 and a half, Spy Guy. I was leaving school one day when my skateboard rang. According to my boss, P, something was making everyone's text messages read backwards. GMO. Racing home, I was chased by some bad dudes on some BMX bikes. I activated my booger ejector, and they were history. Lifting a secret map from one of them, I knew where I had to go. Making a quick change into my three-piece wetsuit, I jumped on my turbo surfboard, and I soon arrived at the island fortress cleverly disguised as a resort. After figuring out that Yar Live was Evil Ray backwards, I turned off the reverse ray. Just then, that dreaded henchman Big Burp let out a supersonic belch that sent me flying. When I awoke, I was hanging by an atomic wedgie in front of the evil mastermind, Dr. Disorder. He unveiled his newest weapon, an army of super smart, super bad brain bots. Quickly thinking, I wrote an unanswerable question on the blackboard that gave the androids brain farts so big their heads exploded. The chain reaction destroyed the fortress, and I was headed home for dinner. Sweet. That's my story, and as I mentioned before, it's all true. Did I mention I was a high school superhero? It all began with a field trip to the GND, Gross National Defense. Their latest projects, a pimple projectile, a squid ink self-defense spray, and a stink bomb made from cow farts. Dr. Grossman was showing us a slime-like substance recently extracted from the Earth's core when the class bully, Larry Osbad, shoved me and I ended up covered in slime. In the process, Larry slipped and crashed. He looked like the Squid Kid. That afternoon, when my dog Slobber tried to jump on me, a stream of green gook squirted from my palm. We were both shocked. The next morning, I spotted a guy stealing a kid's bike. I shouted, "Hold it, dude!" and splat! He landed on his butt, and I returned the bike. I was destined to fight crime with slime. The following day, Big Dwayne was stealing Sherman's lunch money when, splash, he was slimed by the crime-fighting superhero, Slime Man. Hearing laughter, I turned to see Larry. The lab mishap had turned him into the Squid Kid. He opened his mouth and spewed black ink all over me. Then he grabbed my girlfriend, Jane Mary, and climbed atop the gym. He shouted, "Enjoy the stink bomb, Slimy!" as he threw it down at me. In a flash, I shot out a stream of slime that stopped the stink bomb in midair and sent it flying back into his big mouth. The Squid Kid went into a stink-propelled orbit, and Jane Mary fell into my open arms. My friends spent the afternoon partying in a fountain of slime, courtesy Slime Man. That's my story, and it's all true. How great are school dances? I went to this one dance with my buddy Marcos the Muscle, but my mind was focused on asking that freckle-faced girl Julia from my homeroom to dance. Zach was standing at the dance entrance burping out kids' names as they passed by. Classy move. And even I have better moves than Kayla and her BFF Mariah, who are flopping around on the dance floor like a couple of sick chickens. I hit the refreshment table where Mrs. Crocker, the world's worst math teacher, was serving cherry punch that tasted like cough syrup. Just then, Arnold, the class bully, shoved me from behind and my retainer went flying into the punch bowl. When he came back, for seconds I ducked and he fell headlong right into the punch bowl. I started to laugh until I spotted my retainer hanging from Miss Crocker's hair bun. I tried to grab it, but she spun around and asked why I was following her. That's when the muscle snatched it. I ducked into the bathroom to wash the hair off my retainer and encountered Kenji and Jesse having an epic spitball fight. Using my cat-like reflexes to avoid getting hit, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and saw a big zit on my forehead. How could I ever face Julia? I borrowed a comb from Garrett Goldilocks Grayson and brushed my hair forward, but that looked lamer than my Uncle Ed's comb over. I ran out the door right into Julia. I thought I was gonna die. But then I saw a red dot on her chin, and it wasn't a freckle. We laughed, we danced, we hit it off, zits and all. That's my story, guys, and it's all 100% true. I'll never forget the summer I saved the world. I was getting ready for a date with my neighbor Nikayla when Gramps' old nose hair trimmer went haywire. A moment later, my toilet transformed into an evil robot and almost gave me a swirly. I ran out the door into the arms of my bike, which had turned into BikeBot. As we sped along, he explained he was one of the Grobots, robots who had grown from kids' toys into robot superstars. Without warning, I was knocked off BikeBot by the evil Mobot, who was threatening my friend Nikayla. The Mobot and his friend Mailbot had us trapped when a school bus arrived. As we hopped in, it transformed into the Grobot leader, Omnibus Prime. He told us the evil Disrupticon robots had stolen the robot recharger, and the only one who knew its whereabouts was my departed grandpa, Pappy Sutphin. Of course, the answer was right under my nose. As we neared Lady Liberty, my keen eyes spotted the recharger. Just then, the Brooklyn Bridge changed into the Disrupticon leader, Negatron. Nikayla and I jumped onto Miss Liberty, and Omnibus was smacked down. Negatron grabbed me with his claw, but I shoved Pappy's nose hair trimmer right up his nose. Negatron short-circuited, and I fell into Nikayla's arms. I can't wait till next summer when I can save the world again. That's my story, and it's all true. I was so excited when I got my black belt in Taekwondo, I didn't notice I was being followed. Suddenly, I was surrounded by 6 ninjas. Just then, a green-clad figure appeared and finished off all the other fighters with lightning-fast moves. I asked him, "Hey, dude, what form of martial arts do you practice?" "Martian arts," he replied as he whipped off his disguise. A moment later, I was hurling through space in the alien craft, the Mars Trip Revolution, with Zeo, the leader of the Martian people, who had been forced underground by the giant alien invader, Vortek. Zeo knew that the only one big enough to save them was Jeff of the ginormous head. When we reached Mars, the citizens were slightly disappointed that my head was smaller than it appeared on TV. But I wowed them by chopping a Martian phone book in half. It's only 10 pages thick. I taught them my moves while Zeo trained me in the ways of the Martian arts. The lower gravity made flying kicks much easier. Just then, Vortek launched a surprise attack. As the Martians fought the invaders, Zeo pointed to a secret tunnel to Vortek's fortress. When I popped out at the other end, I became a pawn in Vortek's game of Whack-A-Jeff. Using my secret weapon, the Martian fart, I shot up and gave Vortek a ginormous headbutt. Vortek went down, and I received a green belt in martial arts. That's my story, guys, and it's all true. Long, long ago in a galaxy far away, there was a planet inhabited by peace-loving dogs. Under the rule of the beautiful Princess Lhasa, everyone drank refreshments out of the toilet. Then one day, the evil Bark Louder stormed Lhasa's castle with his army of evil Dobermans. Bark kidnapped the princess and took her to his space fortress, the Dog Star. Luckily, young pup Lick Dog Walker declared that he would rescue the princess. With his trusty robo-dog, R2-Fleetoo, by his side, the newly trained Lick took off in his space fighter, cleverly disguised as a frisbee. Bark Louder couldn't resist the frisbee and pulled it into the cargo bay. In a flash, Lick jumped out of the craft, brandishing his leash saber, and the battle was on. Lick quickly rolled over and lassoed Bark. Lick rescued Princess Lassa and went on to greater adventures, while Bark Louder was sentenced to 8 years of hard labor picking up dog poop. That's my story, guys, and it's all 100% true. I'll never forget my stay at Myth Mountain Summer Camp. My camp counselor, Hercules, challenged us kids to arm wrestling. He always won. He had a pet dog, Ruffy, who could eat, bark, and lick you all at the same time. There was always tons to do at camp. We played hide and seek with Cyclops, who always peeked with that one eye. It was a lot easier when he hid. One time, our cabin won capture the flag by sneaking behind enemy lines in a Trojan horse. It was cool. If you didn't follow the pool rules, the lifeguard, King Neptune, would haul you out with that pitchfork thingy he's got. The archery teacher, Cupid, made us aim at that big old heart. Oh, brother. But we had a blast riding Pegasus and dropping little surprises on the rival camp's lawn. Mr. Centaur taught arts and crafts with his half-brother, Ed. We whittled clubs and practiced swinging them in the camp clubhouse. One morning, a four-headed serpent crawled out of the nearby swamp, but we tamed him pretty quickly with our clubs. We made him the goalie of our soccer team, and we won the camp trophy. That's my story, guys, and it's all true. Dear Diary, this summer I learned to drive. Oh, and I became a prince. It all began the day a limo pulled up to the front of my house. Soon I was on a flight to Snobovia to meet Her Royal Highness Queen Clarissa. A search of the royal family tree had determined that I was her distant nephew and heir to the throne. But first I had to learn to act like a prince. The Queen invited me to tea time, so I showed up with my clubs and golf tees in hand. The fencing equipment was perfect for barbecuing, but when it came to polo, I preferred a bike to a horse. The Queen insisted that I helped with the knighting ceremony, but I got a little carried away. At the state dinner, I ordered pizza and so many smoothies that I ended up burping in the Prime Minister's face. At the Royal Ball, I impressed the ladies with my breakdancing and met the beautiful Sicily. We made plans to picnic the next day, but a fox leapt out of nowhere and spooked her horse. I chased after her on my bike. Taking a flying leap, I grabbed the reins and stopped the horse just in time. For my bravery, the Queen made me a knight as well as a prince. I told her I'd love to take the throne one day, but first I had to attend the high school prom with Sicily, of course. That's my story, and it's all true. There are lots of superheroes, but my favorite are the Mall Men, the super security force at the Brainsurge Mall. First, there's Bagman, whose plastovision allows him to see through shopping bags of any thickness. He's recovered many of stolen sweaters. Scooter Dude can chase the bad guy at speeds up to 13 miles an hour. The Keister doesn't have any actual powers, but his utility belt boasts the world's biggest keychain. Together, they've captured such villains as Cartwoman and the notorious Two-Space. Early one morning, the nose smelled cheap cologne and bad breath coming from jail jewelers. The Keister unlocked the store to reveal a guy wearing a ski mask. He said he was a shopper who had been locked in, but using his supervision, Bagman spotted his diamond loot. Keister yanked off his disguise and revealed the Soaker. Their arch-enemy knocked them down with a squirt gun before darting off. The soaked heroes jumped on Scooter Dude and gave chase. The Soaker gave one last blast before running down the escalator. Scooter Dude skid on the wet floor and his wheels slammed into the escalator. His friends went flying and landed right on the Soaker. The Soaker received a stiff sentence from the food court, while the Mall Men gave their corn dogs salute. How do I know these brave heroes, you ask? Well, just don't let my secret out of the bag. That's my story, and it's all 100% true. Believe it or not, I wasn't always good with the ladies. Let me tell you about my first date.
Like any guy with class, I told my date I'd pick her up. So on Saturday, I showed up at Stacy's door with a handful of flowers I picked from my backyard. I could tell Stacy was thrilled. Being a gentleman, I gave Stacy the choice of riding on my pegs or my handlebars. It was a perfect night for a romantic ride until I hit a pothole and got a flat. Luckily, we were only 7 blocks from the restaurant, so we walked the rest of the way. Leaving nothing to chance, I reserved the best table at Johnny's $1-a-slice pizzeria. I must have lost my wallet when I hit a pothole, so she had to pay for dinner. She even treated me to ice cream at Lumpy Louie's. I didn't know that bubblegum ice cream was made with brown sugar, which I'm allergic to, so my head swelled up like a balloon. An hour later, I was feeling better, so we took a horse-drawn carriage ride around Franklin Park. I slyly took the gum out of my mouth before going into the big one, but somehow the gum ended up in Stacy's hair. I used Stacy's cell phone to call my cousin Marvin, who gave us a ride in his tow truck. I figured Stacy would never speak to me again. But at her front door, she planted a kiss on my cheek. What a great date. That's my story, guys, and it's all 100% true. I can't believe I survived prep school. After a 6-month leave on a tour with my dad, the entertainer, I returned to Constant Blowhard's Manhattan's most elite school. I expected everyone to welcome back the campus king, but I had been dethroned by Blair, my former best friend who had stolen my girlfriend Natalie and taken my spot as the starting quarterback. Even worse, the rumor blog Gossip Kid exposed my darkest secret. My dad, the entertainer, was actually a rodeo clown. My reputation was in ruins, and my dream of getting into the Ivy League school on a sports scholarship was toast. So I knew the academic Olympics was my only shot. I heard Blair was also competing with the help of some fancy tutors, but I studied up with the help of my dad. The contest at New York's pretentious towers came down to me and Blair, and the final question, a Florida cracker is a type of what? I knew instantly the answer was horse. However, my victory was cut short when Blair accused me of stealing the answers and flashed the picture of the Gossip Kid's pictures to prove it. After learning who made the fake shots, I showed up unexpectedly at Cell Phony Photos and threatened to expose them unless they helped me. The next day, school was abuzz over the web pictures of Blair's bizarre ride through Central Park the night before the contest. Blair screamed, "That's impossible! I was busy stealing the answers," as I captured his confession on my cell phone. That's my story, and it's all true.